Oh my god, dude, the fucking sound. I was...
A game jam is a game development challenge where you must make a game in a short amount of time, usually with a theme. I participated in the Cosmic Horror Game Jam, in which we created a game in 14 days with a theme involving horrors beyond your comprehension. But before that, I want to talk about our experience with the Cozy Autumn Game Jam, which happened a few months earlier. This was also a 14-day jam, but the theme was more oriented towards chill and cozy, and therefore created more relaxing games and game development experiences. This was the first jam I ever participated in. It almost felt like a game jam tutorial. It was the perfect introduction to these jams. Our team ended up making a drawing game where you find interesting things to draw from the environment based on prompts given to you from the friend you're texting. And I was the music and sound effects part of the team. We had some experienced artists on our team, especially Louis Mint, who has done quite a few game jams before.
Oh, Louis Mint? Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you want.
He's like pretty good. We should, invite him.
He's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's like probably the most experienced game jam guy, like out of everyone.
It was thanks to Luis's excellent concept art and his advice on how to plan a game jam that our team was able to run so smoothly.
There's some randomness you can't really predict and like how long something will take, because like sometimes when you think of a mechanic, it's like, oh yeah, that'll be easy, and then it just ends up being like, you know, bugs like coming out of nowhere. So it's like you want something simple that is like fun on its own, and you can build on top of that, you know, for polish.
Luis so carried the art. Luis works at Blizzard now, by the way. You hear?
Oh, I didn't hear. Maybe I'll include that in the video as a little footnote or whatever.
He's a freaking Blizzard artist.
That's not to say it was all roses, though. I think inevitably all game jams end in developers rushing to complete their game at the last minute. This happened with the Cozy Autumn Game Jam. But thankfully we were given a saving grace, because the people who run the jam gave us an extra 3 hours to complete our game. Not to spoil anything, but we do not get those extra 3 hours in the Cosmic Horror Game Jam. Because that was really nice of them in the Cozy Autumn Game Jam.
I think it would have made the difference between this game jam group staying together and not.
Still says 5 hours.
I have a feeling that they're not going to give us more time.
Alright, back to the Cosmic Horror Game Jam. We came up with a few ideas. Some involving a looping room, others involving doing rituals. But we ended up deciding on a concept where you play as a janitor, and you have to clean up after some eldritch horror that just ravaged the subway. We wanted to go for a more mundane tone that, despite there being horrors beyond your comprehension in the world, you still live your life very normally, and it's just been accepted that these horrors exist. In terms of gameplay, you would be mopping up blood and guts on the floor, and eventually, when you clean up enough of the mess, you can move on to the next room. It's kind of like Viscera cleanup detail. When we came up with the concept, I didn't know existed, so I wasn't plagiarizing. Different rooms would have different conditions as to why you're able to progress, like a puzzle game. Our hope was that we can make a bunch of episodic rooms and just sort of stitch them together. That way we're not stretching ourselves to try to make X amount of rooms that are outside of our scope, but we're also not limited to the number of rooms that we can make. I also came up with this idea to create the final room first, and then create the rest of the rooms later. We should make the boss room like really early, and then we can just make as many rooms before that as we want.
That's a smart idea.
You know, I don't want to make too many and then, oh, the boss room's taken several days.
Yeah.
You know, and then you specifically said this.
That's a good answer because it's flexible. And then I totally forgot. Yeah. When was this? What was it?
This was our second meeting.
Okay.
But we never ended up doing that. As part of this jam, I steeled myself to learn Fmod, which is a third-party audio manager for game engines. It was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be difficult, which is why I didn't use it in the Cozy Autumn Game Jam, which ended up causing a whole load of issues. If you end up playing the game, you'll see that some of the music doesn't loop properly, and yeah, it's not pretty. Fmod is pretty cool though. Instead of just playing an audio file straight, you can have the audio be located in a specific spot in the 3D space. Have more reverb if you're in a cave, and play different sounds based on parameters.
Whoa!
Oh, wow.
That's kind of dope. Wow. Shit.
Most importantly for me, however, is the deep dynamic soundtrack features. You can have instruments fade in and out and move to a different section of music depending on what state your player is in. I suppose that's all possible in Unity normally, but Fmod makes it a lot easier for me, who's a composer, to implement these sounds rather than have a programmer do everything. If it works well, oh my god, it's gonna be so good. So much better than whatever we were doing. But even though I had a great experience using Fmod, my programmer friend who actually put the sounds from Fmod into Unity did not have a great experience.
So how do you guys like Fmod?
Hate it so much. From the programming end, it's a mess. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things also that I had to like make really hacky kind of fixes for.
It has a few quirks, especially when it comes to Fmod in a WebGL environment, which our game is in. We want players to be able to play the game in their browser instead of having to download it. Every time this causes a ton of issues during development, but it lets more players play our game, which I suppose makes it all worth it. Maybe learning Fmod during a game jam isn't the best idea, but when else are you gonna learn it, you know? But hey, we got the dynamic soundtrack to work. As the player cleans up more and more of the mess, the soundtrack slowly fades away as different elements fade out, leaving a calm yet eerie silence in its place. The game's soundtrack is based on the gamelan, a Balinese or Javanese orchestra, of which I use the traditional tunings for. It's called the Devlog scale, and it has a very wonky and asymmetrical tuning. The music is mostly inspired by Geino Yamashirogumi, who did the
Okay.
Akira soundtrack, and I really like the sound. They have an album called Cacophony Renee or something like that. And basically it combines like voice with the gamelan, and I wanted to do something like that. The development of our Cozy Autumn Game Jam was slow and steady. But even though we worked at an even pace throughout development, we still had to rush a lot in the end. It was an even pace, but it was a very slow pace, and so to prevent this from happening again during the Cosmic Horror Game Jam, we needed to take development more seriously this time. Instead, we took a week-long break and didn't do any development. Should have spent that first week a bit better.
Well, to be fair, I was at a convention, you know? We couldn't have spent that first week doing anything, really.
I was busy playing Overwatch, in case you were wondering. This is tragic. Anyways, after the break, we got back on track, so I guess we really made the horror game in 7 days, if you were to be generous enough to throw us that bone. We were put into full development swing here, okay? No lazying about like with the Cozy Autumn Game Jam. It was time to get serious. When doing a game jam, you end up having to make a lot of sacrifices as to what the final game would look like compared to how you envisioned it. So I wanted to bring attention to one of the gameplay segments that we designed that seemed a lot cooler on paper, but ended up not working in the final game. The gameplay segment that I'm talking about is the final boss, which is a confrontation of your actual in-game boss. The idea is that as you approached your boss, the music would get a lot louder and more intense and stressful, and the player would realize that they would have to clean up the boss and rid themselves of their job. The boss, when you get closer, it's the most crazy, creepy, weird, and as you rip off the limbs, the music fades away.
Yeah, and then there's a final door, and it like, instead of it being a black door thing behind it, it's white.
In the final hallway, the music transfers from the more dissonant Pelog scale to the more open and hopeful sounding Slendro scale. As you walk further into the hallway, the music incorporates more and more elements until the song becomes full and rich as your player reaches peace. They have escaped not from the eldritch horror, but from the horror that is your janitor job. Okay, well, that was cool, but the final game doesn't end up feeling like that at all. First of all, cleaning up the boss is kind of an abstract concept, and well, it looks like this in the final game. Is there no boss music?
No boss music for some reason.
And also, the music in the hallway just doesn't work, so that's a bust. Every single time I make a game with you, the last song's always gypped somehow. Okay, now it's time. It's the final day. It has all been leading up to this, and we still have a lot of things we need to do. The game has 3 sections. The first section is done-ish. The second section is still a work in progress, and we designed the final sequence with the boss and the hallway, but we hadn't actually started putting it in the game yet. So it was time to grind. We worked hard. That is to say, Sean worked hard. I mean, I was working too, but Sean was the one actually programming everything into the game and putting it into Unity. If you had to add one more member, what job would you want them to have?
9,000,000% a programmer. Like, it's not even a contest.
He told me that after this day, his bones hurt.
My bones hurt after this jam. Like, not like my joints or anything, but I can feel my bones. I'm like sore from doing a game jam.
Which I can understand. He spent literally the whole day working on the game. I had some downtime, definitely, in comparison to Sean, who was working as hard as he could. I spent like an hour trying to come up with a name for the game. Synonyms for blood. Juice. Okay, thanks. Bloody mess. This is terrible. Bloody job. That's not. Rank rigmarole. Deathly dusting. Why is it all alliteration? Harrowing housekeeping. Foul formalities. These are
What if we just named the game Subway Janitor?
Part of the reason why we felt the need to work so hard was because this time we didn't have the veteran Louis Mint with us to work on the game.
He's a freaking Blizzard artist.
And for whatever reason, that inspired us to want to push harder. You know, to show off that we can make a game even without his help.
Because this is Naz's first time working on it. This will be his like second time working on a game.
We definitely could have used the help of the extra 3 hours to the deadline though. Like we did with the Cozy Autumn Game Jam. No extra time. But I suppose it doesn't matter. The point of a game jam is to have a strict deadline that pushes you to finish your game no matter what. Game jams are there to force you to try new things and have them actually appear in a finished game. Every decision you make ends up in the game one way or another. In fact, that's what makes game jam games so special, that the human mistakes find their way into the end product. The Cozy Autumn Game Jam was a good first experience in game jams. But the training wheels are off. All that matters is that you've made a game, and when it's the final build and the last minutes of the jam, even if there are mistakes you want to fix, all you can do is upload it.
It's done? Okay, hold on. Upload files, final build.
Bruh. No.
Do we have enough?
It's not gonna make it. Nope.
Okay, but maybe it'll still let it go through. Watch this build just doesn't work.
As it turns out, you can upload new builds of the game even after the deadline, so in a way it's even more forgiving than the Cozy Autumn Game Jam. But we were done when we submitted our game, that was it. I was done at least. I was checked out. Dude, that was so funny. I was literally crying. If you want me to be brutally honest, I'm not proud of Subway Janitor. The game's buggy, it wasn't my best music, and the game's very concept isn't that interesting. But maybe we'll do a better job next time.
Yeah, maybe one more jam. I was thinking about joining the 7-day FPS jam in December.